Hello and welcome to Eramis Soccer with myself, Justin Hoyte. And we are recapping our coverage of Trinidad and Tobago during the tournament this year with a very special guest, Trinidad defender who also plays for Hartford Athletic, Triston Hodge. Triston, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
And we actually have two Trinidad internationals on this podcast with Justin Hoyte and Triston. And I like to tell people that the three of us have combined for, I believe, 47 international caps. You two accounting for 47 of them and me doing my bit with none. Your start to your Trinidad career, Triston, is interesting because I look through the games here and you didn't start slow. One of your early games listed is a game against Uruguay. Edison Cavani is listed. Nicolas Ladero is listed. I'm a Middlesbrough fan, and I can see the Christian Stuani and Gaston Ramirez pairing listing. That's a hell of a start to international football for you. Have you played a better team than that since?
I think, honestly, one of my hardest games I've played in my career, was against Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Was it in Mexico?
Yeah, in Mexico.
What an atmosphere.
Bro, what an atmosphere, bro. You couldn't hear yourself, you can hear your teammates. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy atmosphere. Mexico is one of the hardest places to go to and play. I'm telling you, I remember playing them in the Gold Cup at Atlanta Stadium. It was full of Mexican fans, the whistling, the booing. Man, it's something else. It really is something else.
They get more fans in America than Americans.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. They're good. They're good as well. They've got a lot of individual players, young players, fast players, dynamic players. So to try and communicate in the game to someone next to you with that loud noise, it's one of the hardest things to do, man. How did you feel on your debut? Was you ready for it?
To be honest, I was kind of scared, because I haven't played, I'm accustomed playing, in Trinidad, people come to the game, so, it was, a really hard transition from, 50 to, 10,000.
It's hard.
Way, tough players, so, going into the game, the nervousness was there, but, I didn't try to think about it too much because I was having a good season in Trinidad, and I believed in myself. So, but unfortunately, as the game went on, I got injured in the first half. I had a mild concussion, so I had to come off and to the hospital. But I was having a good game, and after the game that's where I got my contract, my first contract.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
During your international career, Triston, if I was to ask you one individual player that you found the highest level to face, who would you pick out?
Can you repeat that question?
During your international career, if I was to ask you which individual attacker that gave you the most problems, toughest to play against, highest level of opposition, who would jump into mind when I ask you that?
I would say I played against Peru, and there's this guy, I think his name is Hernandez. I can't remember his name, but I think he's the number 8. He played right wing, and I played left back, and I think he was pretty direct. He don't turn back, he's coming at you, I think he was the toughest opponent I faced, and I played against Mexico's right winger. I can't remember his name. Lozano. It's Lozano. He's pretty good too, but I think the guy from Peru is the toughest.
Nice. And in this tournament we're about to reference, the opposition you came against was no slouch. You faced head-to-head Jesus Ferreira, Leon Bailey, Demarai Gray, Michail Antonio. There was some talk in the media of some B teams going to this tournament, but that's some high level opposition you've ran into. So coming into this tournament, talk us through, we're outsiders, take us inside a little bit to the Trinidad squad. What's the preparation for the tournament look like? What is the team mindset going into the tournament?
our like to start the tournament, like we had to like qualify first. We have to play like one game before we get into Group A. So we like it was a must-win game. Like if we lose, like that's it. So going into the tournament, we was like, it's do or die. We have to like put our best foot forward. Like there's no time. It's not a league, so there's no time for us to like, say we could lose this game or we could draw this. We have to like win. And, like we got the news that Nicaragua was kicked out, so automatically we went into like to the next group. So we had a little more time to prepare or a little extra preparation for the tournament coming up. And, most of the guys we were positive. Like some of the guys were having good seasons. So in the camp it was an elated like environment. People was working hard. Like the coaches was like happy for the chance to go in Group A to push ourselves. So like everyone in the camp was positive. So we would go out, we would train hard. Like we believed, like we had a strong mind to believe that like this is our chance because we didn't have to play the game again. We already in the group. So that's one step in. So like going into the camp, like everything was elated. We was happy. We was working hard. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that showed through a little bit in the first game because I was very impressed. I mean, the field it looked horrendous. And you actually managed, even though we're watching on TV and we can see the ball rolling to a stop. Well, first of all, let's interject with here. If there's any young players watching, any youth, high school, college coaches watching, young players often blame conditions. But the fact is, your team is here went into horrendous conditions in terms of field moisture and weather and put on what I think is a very impressive performance. So, like, how did you do that? How did you manage to have a 20-plus pass move before Hackshaw plays in Jones for the opener? And it looks like your team managed to adapt to the conditions where Kitts and Nevis every now and again seem to be visibly frustrated by them. Is that something the coaching staff discussed with you? Was there any particular approach to it for you to be so successful?
To be honest, like, no, like most players, like we have like different pairs of cleats, which is like the rubber pegs and the iron pegs. So he was like, put your iron on because it's wet. But like, I think personally, like coming from Trinidad, like Trinidad natives, like we're accustomed to like fields being wet, playing in that like condition, like the fields are not good in Trinidad. So I think that helps us, in the game when we are like, playing on the wet field. Like, I think that pushed us through. Like some of the players already, playing on surfaces like that, so it wasn't nothing new. Because like we won against the US in like a condition like similar too, like it was wet.
Yeah, I think that brings up an interesting point on player development because you've just said there, Trinidad, you kind of used to and adapted to less than ideal conditions. I coached in the Ivy League and I've got some friends coaching in MLS academies. And sometimes if you bring a player up and you develop him in an environment of perfection and he's not ready when the circumstances change, when he's not an MLS next player anymore and he's playing in the USL Championship on NISA, when he's a Dartmouth player, but he's not playing on his Saturday afternoon perfect field, he's playing midweek on the road on turf. And if they can't perform in these different types of conditions, I'd argue that player's not mentally developed. And it can actually work against you to be brought up in these environments of perfection.
Yeah, I mean, like, it always comes down to, like, your mind, but, like, it could help you, like, playing in a field like that before, it could help you, like, it also has players, like, has never played on a field like that, and they would adapt, like, to a field that we played on, it's all mental, too.
Yeah, because if you play on surfaces that ain't perfect, and weather conditions you're used to playing in, them kind of conditions where the pitch is boggy, you have to like chip the ball sometimes, or you have to put a little bit of more weight on the passes, or short pass, you have to put a little bit less, just because the role of the ball, having played outside of a perfect field. When you do come to that experience or playing on a pitch that, you've played on before, or there's conditions all of a sudden change, your mindset is like, well, I've faced this before, so I know how to deal with it. I know how to pass. I know how to run. I know how to dribble because I've experienced that. Do you know what I mean? You know when to pass, when not to pass, when to dribble, when not to dribble. So I think that kind of helped you in that game also, because a lot of the players were used to it and have experienced, not used to it, but have experienced playing on them kind of fields before, which, you know, going to Trinidad, the fields aren't perfect, but you get good quality players out of it, because when they go from that field that they've been playing on to a better surface, now they become a better player because the pitch is better, the quality of the pass is going to be better. Do you know what I mean? You become a better player playing outside of them conditions.
Yeah. I often wonder to myself if the US fan base, the US media, they try too hard with this, how hard CONCACAF is. And they sort of, I think, overplay field conditions and what have you, rather than a real intention to, yeah, this is going to be different, but there's a way to win this game in these conditions. And these are the conditions of this game. And I mean, you've been around Arsenal, Middlesbrough, Sunderland. I sometimes wonder if we're breeding players with a lack of resilience, because even the adult leadership and the narrative is, as soon as the conditions aren't perfect, then you can't succeed. Is that something you came across at those clubs, Justin, or am I the one overplaying it?
No, it's funny because obviously growing up at London Colney playing at Arsenal, you was playing on carpet, so it's like you're used to that surface. But then when I was an academy guy, we go against Millwall, and the surface would be terrible, and they would make it like that just on purpose because they know that we've come from like perfect surface, we're going to play well. So they purposely didn't make it perfect for us because they know it upset our rhythm. But we quickly adapted to that because we had to make us stronger, because we knew we couldn't play the type of football that we play. We had to adapt to a different style. Whereas nowadays, if everyone is playing on the same surface, okay, it's great and it's good for the young players and their development, because we want everyone to be at a decent level that they can play and enjoy the best surfaces. But at the end of the day, if they don't reach the top and they have to go somewhere a little bit lower, or it's not perfect conditions outside of the MLS, outside of the USL, maybe, you know, the surfaces aren't great. Now, how do they deal with it? Some players cannot deal with it because they're like, well, this ain't right. This length of grass isn't right. The pitch is not flat. The pitch is not straight. It's, you know, we've got a few bumps in it. How do they mentally adapt to it? They can't, because they're not used to it. So then that puts a mark against them to be like, well, I'm not going to pick that person because they don't know how to deal with it. So mentally, it's like, how do you deal with it? And if you have everything perfect for you, when it's not perfect, as a person, how do you deal with it? But if you've come from somewhere where things aren't perfect and you go to that perfect, I feel that you don't take it for granted. So being at Arsenal, okay, we took it for granted for the most part, but I felt when I went to Sunderland, it was a completely different situation, just because I went from a team that was winning every week to a team that was bottom of the league, losing every week. So not only do you learn more about yourself, you learn more about the group, but I feel you get that experience, that valuable learn football education of how hard is it on the other side of football, you know, when you're not winning, when things are not great, when you have to go somewhere else and, you know, you're not loved by the fans, you know, fans hate you, fans don't like you because you've done this, you don't like that. So it's all a learning curve. And I feel also being part of the national team is a learning curve, because as Triston knows, everything in the national team might look perfect on the outside, but on the inside, things ain't always perfect. You know, there's been many run-ins with our national team that you've probably experienced that, you know, we won't talk about, but it's never been perfect. You know, it's been public news that sometimes we've not been able to play in games, or we've waited to play in the games until things were right. But people don't know what goes on behind closed doors. But at the end of the day, as players, we train hard, we work hard, because our end goal is we want to perform for our national team and for our clubs, because all in all, if the national team and the club do well and I'm performing as a player, then I can get a move to wherever I want to go, and it makes me a better player. So I say you got to take the good with the rough and the rough with the smooth, because, you know, you can't always have it perfect. And I guess no one ever has it perfect, even Messi. You know, look at him at PSG.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's someone unhappy at every level of the game, that's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I mean, you know, the national team is the highest level. So at the end of the day, that's where you want to reach. You want to reach your club level, best player in the club, or one of the better players in the club. And at the end of the day, you want to represent your national team.
Yeah. So back to this game, we go 2-0 up. Good goal from Ajani Fortune, assisted by Nabil Hackshaw, who I thought was very impressive in this game. We get an own goal, second half, and it's, I believe, a very, very dominant, very impressive 3-0 win. After the game, Triston, you know, the part that we don't see on the TV feed, you go back to the locker room. How does the team and the staff feel about this game? Are we excited? Are we giving feedback that something needs to be better? Because we obviously have a very, very tough game up next. What's the mood immediately after that game?
I mean, like immediately after a win, you know, it's always like a joyful moment because we played the game to win. So like, you know, everyone was like being themselves, like happy, done the job. We had a convincing win, you know, 3-0. So like everyone in the group, the room was excited. We were happy. We like, I think like we were happy first, and then we like studied like we have a hard game after. You know, the happiness was first. So you know, like after the coach came in, he was like, you know, congratulations, like everyone like was there, like chanting on, like, you know, and then we had to like switch our focus because like that's just the first game. We haven't done anything yet. Like we just have like done the minimum, you know. So after the game, we would go back to the hotel, like we would have some joy, like, you know, like he would give us some time, but like we had to refocus quick because like the next game was like in the next 3 days, and like we know it's not gonna be like an easy 3-0 game or like we're not gonna dominate that easy, you know. So I mean, it's always joy after a game, but like in tournaments that you know you have to switch on after. You know, you have to forget about the win eventually.
Now, tournaments are interesting to me because at Hartford, you know, you come in, you play your game, you all go home, and there's a familiarity and there's a routine to your life if you win or you lose or you draw. Tournaments are much more intensive, right? Because you're all in the same hotel, you're all usually on foreign soil. I would say the good and the bad both get magnified because of the proximity of the group. You know, speaking from first-hand experience, what did you find to be the biggest differences between the regular season and day-to-day at your club and tournament play with the national team?
Oh, I mean, like, your club, like, you get to like go through pre-season, like, you know, you build a strong connection, like, you know everyone, like, perhaps like national team, like, there's some new guys that you know you have to adjust to, or like you have never played with, and like you only get to come in for like a short period of time because like they release you for like 5 days before the tournament or like 6 days before, so you get a little bit of time to really gel and make that connection like with your players, you know. Like I mean, some of them are countrymen, but like there's some countrymen who you never played with, so you don't really know like their tendencies, like what they do well, what they don't do, and like you have to learn all that in like a short period of time, which is usually like 5 days. You know, so I think it's harder than a tournament is always harder than like the league play, you know, because like there's a short time to prepare, you know, and like it's harder too, like it's a much higher level, you know, like everyone can play. Like they look for the best from the country, you know, like everyone is in tough leagues. So I think like tournaments is like harder, like especially like national level.
Yeah. And now between the two games, it was a surprise to myself and Justin, but the lineup for Jamaica comes up and you are replaced, it looks like, with Gomez at left back, which after a 3-0 win, after a clean sheet, you know, personally, just speaking as a fan and somebody covering the team, little more changes than I expected to see. How did that work? Are you told that, you know, in the hotel? Do you find out the day of the game? What is the logistics of benching after a 3-0 victory?
Oh, well, I mean, like the head coach, like he makes all the decisions. You know, like as players, we can like do much. We can like voice our opinions, like you know, on a decision he makes, but like it doesn't make a difference because he has the final say. So I believe like I found out that I'm not gonna start the game like the day after the win with St. Kitts. Like we had a break and then we trained the next day, and like that's when I found out like you know I'm not starting. Like he came up to me asking me like how I'm feeling, like you know, but he also told me like he's gonna change the system. Like he's gonna play like 3 center backs and 2 wing backs, and like I'm not really a wing back because I'm a center back, but I could play left back. So you know,
Yeah.
going up and down is not really my thing. So he was like, you know, he's going to like play 3-5-2, and I was like, you know, being a wing back in a 3-5-2 is, you know, I could give you my best, but I don't think like it would be good for the team. You know, I was honest because I can't like go up and down like that. And you know, Sean is a more up and down guy, even though he's a 90. So I was kind of okay with his decision. Like I feel like if we were playing the same system and like he put me on the bench, like it would hurt me, or I would feel like, you know. But I was honest about it because I mean like he's a much better like wing back than me, so I was okay about the decision.
All right, and you know, it's worth mentioning it's a very, very high level opponent, but the first half doesn't go well. We're 3-0 down at halftime. 2 goals by Everton winger Demarai Gray, a goal by Aston Villa forward Leon Bailey. It's a tough opponent. I guess my question here is, you're talking about, you know, people use elite level and top class. It's very much an overused term here, but when you're looking at Antonio, who was very recently played 90 minutes and won the Europa Conference League with West Ham, when you look at Leon Bailey, who's been effective in the Bundesliga and the EPL, and when you look at Demarai Gray, who is, you know, playing a role in Everton surviving relegation from the EPL, I mean, this is the top of the top of the sport that you're playing head-to-head against here in this Jamaican front three. If I was to ask you, because this kind of thing fascinates me, if you think of a USL Championship game against a quality winger or a quality forward, and you think specifically about Leon Bailey, Michail Antonio, Demarai Gray, what's the first thing that hits you about the difference? Is it the skill, the pace, the speed, all of it, something different? What is it that separates these people?
I mean, like the level is way higher. So, you know, I think the USL level is nowhere, you know, compared to the English Premier League. So they train at that level every day, like every day. So, you know, like automatically, like they're already on a different level. Like they're faster, like their tactical awareness is way higher, like their positioning, like they always go in position like beforehand, like everything is just like way more like a higher level, you know. And like I mean, like the USL could be like on a level too, but like compared to the EPL, I don't think so.
Yeah. Do you learn anything playing against opposition of this level, or is it simply a case of you're doing the same things and they just have that much more sharpness, intensity, athleticism? Or are you literally walking off the field going, yeah, that's made me a better player because I need to change this in my game?
Well, I mean, like every day you learn different things, you know, like learning has no age. So I think like playing against Antonio, you can learn something, and like playing against the USL guy, you can learn something too. But like, you know, I think like playing against Antonio, you will learn more than you play against a guy in the USL, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess it's that learning curve playing against better, more experienced player. I always use experience because, you know, you can go against a really good up and coming USL player or say MLS player, and he could technically be better at certain things than Antonio. But because Antonio has got the experience of playing in the Premier League, playing in the championships, and playing more games than someone in USL at a higher level, everyone automatically thinks he's a better player. Yes, he is on I would say stats, and looking at him, he's a better player. Yes, but if you put one of the top USL or MLS players in the Premier League, can they do a good job? Or if you give a winger a chance to do something in the Premier League, could he do it? Maybe. But I say they have that Premier League Championship experience. If you give one of the best USL wingers a chance in the Championship to prove themselves and train at that level that Antonio and some of the other players has, I'm telling you, one or two could probably do it if they train at that level on a consistent basis. And that's why I feel that they're higher up, because the time of the pass is better, the weight of the pass is better. They, like you said, Tristan, the understanding of the game, the tactical, the positional play is all a lot more advanced than someone in the USL. I would say even MLS and USL League One and USL Championship, just because they're doing that day in, day out. They're doing it on a European level. and they've done it for however long in the championship, and the championship, we have to admit, is higher than the USL. So in that sense, you learn a lot playing against them in an experienced way. But I feel you learn just as much playing against a tricky fast winger in the USL, because that's what you're going to come against every week. So that will make you better because you're coming against them opponents every week. But internationally, you're playing against different quality players and higher level players of a higher level IQ that will make you better on an international stage. So I feel like you've got to adapt to international football to club football, because I'm telling you, as Triston knows, it is completely different.
Yeah. Rest of this game, we get a goal back. Certainly a lot of fight. You know, some teams go down 3-0 when they're underdog and fall, but Rampersad scores a good goal. I thought he had a good game this game. Jamaica get a fourth. It's a 4-1 defeat. And again, what I'm interested in, because, you know, the TV analysts can tell us what they think and we can think what we think, but we don't know. And Trinidad could be anywhere here on a scale of still confident because we played well against St. Kitts and we lost to a good team with a good front three and we got a fighting chance of going through. Or we could have had our confidence dented because we've just let 4 goals in, made some changes to the team, and we got the group favourites, the USA, up next. I certainly was a believer that there's no shame in the Jamaican loss because of primarily those 3 players. They're not the only players, but I think they're certainly the flagship players in that group. And not only did they get out the group, they won their quarterfinal 1-0. I think it was Guatemala, and they only lost to the eventual winners, Mexico. So that was a very, very strong team that we lose to. What is the group reaction to a 4-1 defeat going into a game against the USA?
I mean, like, we won our first game and like we lost the second. Like, we knew like if we won the game against the US, we were going to go through regardless. So like the mindset was there, like the positives was there. Like we would like try to pick ourselves back up because like we competed like in the second half with Jamaica. We see that we could, like, you know, like we showed like if we started the right team, like we had a chance. We probably could still lose, but we had like we looked like we had a better chance with in the second half. The players that he started brought on. So I think like going into the US game, like our confidence was there, but like we were gaining it. We didn't have much time to like gain confidence because like, you know, it's a short time to play the game. So like we had to like get our confidence from in training, like guys motivating us, you know. But going into the game, we know it was a hard game, but like we always believed we could win. We always had that belief, like in the locker room, like we always believed that we could win, you know. And I like that from the guys, the group of guys, and like the team, like the confidence is there. Like, you know, there's a lot of things that we have to work on, but like the confidence is there. Like, you know, we just like have to work on some other stuff.
Yeah. And now, when your staff was scouting the USA, was there anything in particular that you were worried about? Was there anything in particular that gave you a reason to believe you might win the game? What was the preparation like for this third game?
The preparation was like, you know, we have to like defend behind the ball because like we know they're all quality players in the US team. Like they most of them play like at a high level. If it's not MLS, it's like somewhere. So like defending behind the ball was our main concern, you know, and like going on the counter because we have fast wingers and like, you know, so our main concern was like defending and like going on the counter, you know, like, but like eventually it didn't work out for us. Like, you know, we let up like 3 goals in the first half and like it was hard to like get back up from there.
Yeah, I think what's impressive from you, Triston, is you've got your place back in the team here. And why I think that speaks well to your mindset is I haven't coached national team, but I've coached D3, D2, D1 college, now pro. And sometimes you're not sure. You've got 2 players and you haven't picked one. And if you ever start a player and bench him, you don't bench him in your own mind permanently. You sort of like, okay, I've got that game worth of information on him. Now let's check this other guy and let's see. And honestly, in my personal experience, 7 or 8 times out of 10, the player you bench makes the decision for you by losing belief in himself, dropping his levels in practice, filling his mind with doubt. And so you go with the other guy. But you must have trained well between the games. You must have kept, your mind bought into the team despite being benched. No one wants to be benched. And you're back in the lineup for the USA game. So the game doesn't go well, but I think that speaks to your resilience, which is showing again at the club level. But I have one main question for you on this USA game. It's we lose. It happens, right? You play against a good team, you get beat. It's happened to everyone listening. Justin's played on the only team I know of that didn't ever happen to, the Arsenal Invincibles. But everyone gets beat. But I'm interested in your thoughts on Jesus Ferreira, because I have not watched a lot of him going into the Gold Cup, but I'm not blind and I'm not deaf. And I'm aware that the USA fans are like, this guy, a lot of them at least, this guy is not an elite level player. This guy is padding his stats against a certain level of opposition, and this guy isn't at the top of the sport or going to be. I'm watching just this tournament, and I'm personally, so I'll get all the abuse in the comments or whatever. I'm not seeing that big a difference between Demarai Gray, Leon Bailey, Michail Antonio, and Jesus Ferreira. You played against them head to head. You're on the field with them. That's a real rare perspective to get. How does he fit in that group, or is he a level below?
Are you speaking about like the group of like
USA number 9, Ferreira, who scored the 3 goals?
Are you speaking about like the US group that they selected, or like the
No,
main?
I'm talking about the elite level forward you faced, like Leon Bailey, Michail Antonio, Demarai Gray, Jesus Ferreira. Like, is he on that level? Is he capable of reaching that level in time? Or is he, in your eyes, significantly below the level of play those 3 showed?
For me personally, he's on the same level. Like, he's smart, he's technical. I think he's more technical than Antonio. He's just as technical as Gray. Like, he has a good awareness of the center back, so he jumps down. I think he's on a good level. Like, he's a top player for me. He's not like big in size, like a big hold-up guy, but like he's technically good. Like, he runs off the ball, he makes good decisions. Like, his passing is good. He could shoot, he could finish. He's on a high level. I like him as a player, for sure. He's a hard player to play against.
Yeah, Justin, what do you think?
I like it. I really like him as a player. I feel what people fail to forget, I'd say the US fans. I feel the US fans are stuck in with the forwards that they've had in the past. They're not maybe used to this new generation strikers type of striker. I think that the majority of the time they still have their main number 9, and now Ferreira's come into it. They're not sure about him just yet. Obviously, because he's in the MLS, but I'm sure it won't be long before he's exiting out of the MLS to somewhere in Europe, I would say. But I think what we've got to forget, what we got to remember is he's still quite young. You look at his movement, you look at the amount of goals he scored, you look at the game against Trinidad, his movement, the way he plays, the way his link-up play is great. And as a defender, he's a hard person to play against. He's not a traditional number 9. He's someone that can play out wide. He's good out wide also. So for me, I think I'm a big fan. You know what I say about him. I think he's a good player. I've watched him a lot now recently. I watched him against Inter Miami recently. He's a really, really good player. Young player. He's a young player. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a young player with huge talent. And if he goes abroad somewhere, which he probably will do, and scores goals, I'm sure the US fans or whoever was doubting him are soon going to change, because it's only a matter of time before someone sees him and takes him. Because, with them kind of numbers at international level, you're not a bad player. If you're scoring goals at international level at such a young age, you're not a bad player. Yeah. Even if you get called up for the national team, I don't think you're a bad player.
Team I watch the most is Middlesbrough. And I've seen Daryl DK go from the MLS to the Championship and how he's performed. I would be very excited to hear Ferreira was going to Middlesbrough. Probably not going to happen, right? But I think he's that level. Is he going to do what Chuba Akpom did last year and get 30 goals? Probably not. Is he going to do what Marcus Forss did and get 10? Maybe, Maybe I see it.
Yeah, I think he can score goals in the championship. He's that type of player. If you put him in the right team, I feel he'll score goals. He's not a selfish striker. He's not a traditional number 9, but he's a player that can also create assists. And what I like about him is that he can play on the wing. What I like about a lot of modern day players now, they don't just play one position. You know, some players can play centre back, left back, right back, wing back now. And now you're seeing strikers can play number 9, number 10, number 11, number 7. So you're getting it now where a lot of players can play multiple positions, which I think is another asset as a player to have.
Yeah. And now
So I've
on
got
the
a question. So what was the mindset of the team going into the US? Were you got confident going into the game, knowing that you've beat the US before? Everyone knows about what happened to the US once you beat them, but obviously as Trinidad players, you know about the history, you know about what it would mean to the country, to the players to beat the US, and also what it was to go into that game knowing that, you know, if you show yourself in a good light, you never know. You could potentially get you moved to the MLS or, you know, somewhere else. You know, other teams in Europe will be watching. So for you, what was your mindset? Are you just solely focus on the game, which I know you would be, but also in the back of the mind, you must know if you perform well, you know, doors can open now or in the future.
Yeah, well, I mean, like going into a game, you know, you always go into a game to win. You know, like going.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You know, like going into the game, like we had confidence. Like we know that we won a game against the US. It was on our minds. Like, you know, it wouldn't just go over our heads because it happened. So
Yeah.
it's no, it could happen again. And like most of the guys was like, you know, if they could do it, we could do it. Like, you know, things to motivate us. You know, and like personally, like playing like a high caliber game like the US on a stage like that, you know, doors get open for you. That's always a thought in your mind that's just there. Like, you know, even though you don't want to think about it, it's
Yeah, of
there.
course.
You
Yeah.
know? So yeah, I mean, like that should help motivate you a little more that, you know, you could get a bigger opportunity, like even a bigger club, even more money. So, you know, like I think that's like a lot of self-motivation right there, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think like going into the US game, like most of the guys was confident in terms of like we could win this game. Like, you know, if everyone is on the same head and like if everyone gives their best, you know, we could win this game. I mean, like if everyone gives their best and we still lose, you know, we can't fault someone for giving their best, you know. So
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what you ask for at the end of the day.
yeah, like our confidence was there. Like we just didn't get the job done.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, against the US now, it's tough now. They're better than what they was before the US, I feel. So how was the mood in the camp after? Obviously, everyone's lost. Upset
Yeah,
you lost, but you know, it's disappointing when you go out of a tournament. But at the same time, you know, you're playing against top level opponents that I feel have moved on and got better, in a sense.
yeah, like the mood in the camp was like, you know, after the loss, like most of the guys we were downcast. Like, you know, obviously we just won the game, we are out of the tournament. Like we have to like go our separate ways now, like
Yeah,
from
it's
being
hard. Yes.
so long, you know, like it's it's a kind of bittersweet moment. Like at the same time, you're like thankful for being like on the team with the guys, you're like enjoying the time you had there, but like it's always like a sad moment, like to go leave all your teammates, you know, like sometimes you know you like never see them again.
Yeah, because it's crazy. Because like what people don't know is that obviously national team is a long time. You don't see each other, or like tournament, you're together with each other for so long. The tournament starts as soon as the tournament finished, or you get knocked out. The next day, people don't realize you're leaving.
You're leaving.
Everyone goes on their separate ways, and you don't know what's going to happen after that. You don't know if you're going to be called up again. You don't know when the next friendly is going to be. You don't know what is next, and all you know is right. You're getting on that flight, and you're going back to your club.
Yeah. Like it's always a sad trip. Like
Yeah, of
after
course. Yeah,
it's sad for everyone, I think. Like, you know, building a chemistry with like your countrymen, like being
yeah.
together with them. It's a better feeling than club level. Like, you know.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And a lot of players you grew up with, you know what I mean, through the academies, or you know, you see locally, like live close by you, you have similar friends. So I feel you have that close connection with everyone, more so than club, just because everyone
Yeah.
comes from all over in the club. Where national team, it's like we're all from here, like we're from this area, we're from that area. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, of course, coach. Yeah, like everyone's on the same culture. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of where You see it, like you see a lot of national teams, they come in, they're listening to music, they come in dancing, because they're all from the same culture. I feel that's where you get that togetherness and you build that everlasting bond. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like as a cultural standpoint, like it helps a lot. Like differentiating from club to country. Like, the culture,
Which is hard with a club because obviously the club has to create a culture with however many different individuals.
Yeah.
So it's like creating a club culture and identity, but national team is like, we've already got our identity. Now we've got our culture. It's just how does the team come together and just basically we're together. That's it. And that I feel club level, which you would know is that you have to build that. You have to build the identity. You have to build this. You have to build a togetherness. One player drops off because they don't like what they're fitting, then they're out. But national team is kind of like, but they can't really fall out because they're part of it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's crazy when you think about it. But these little things, I think, go a long way in tournaments. And I feel a lot of successful teams have cultural strengths for sure. I mean, when I was at Arsenal, we had individuals, but we had little together units that blended in and worked in one unit. Whereas I've been on other teams where we've just all been separate and it just didn't work. So yeah, it's crazy. National team and club level is completely different.
So club level, Triston, you're with Hartford Athletic. Disappointing season. Coaching change you've been on the end of. No need to revisit that. But what's worth mentioning here is I speak to people inside and players at Hartford a lot. And even before the coaching change, people spoke very, very highly of Omid Namazi. And we might be seeing the shoots of a revival here because, we've won 4 games all season in the USL Championship, but we've won 2 of our last 3 games. We got a 2-0 win here over the Las Vegas Lights. We've got a loss to San Antonio. And then in our last game, we've got a 2-1 win over New Mexico. Red card right at the end there. But 2 wins out of 3's got to feel good coming off the season we've had. Is there a specific difference in Coach Omid that has helped the team? Is it a case of just sticking at it, sticking together and learning the lessons we've been learning all season? Or, what are you attributing these 2 wins in 3 games to? And what makes you feel optimistic and confident about the games ahead?
I mean, like, so most of the games that we lost, like this season, is like we beat ourselves. Like we shot ourselves in the foot most of the games. Like some games, like we were outplayed and beaten. But I think personally, with the coaching change, like reality, like it now hit us. Like things were going well, and like guys were like still like not giving their everything, and like I think like now it reached like a moment where like we were embarrassed. Like we are way better than like what they see. Like some of the fans come out and like it hurt us to like disappoint like all the fans and stuff because we know we are a way better team than that. So I think like personally, like we just need to like give more, like more effort, give more, like run more, like put more effort in practice, like take more accountability. The coaching change, like it helped us. I would say it helped us. Like I wouldn't want to say like the next coach was a bad coach. Like he was a good coach too. Like like it takes different like coaches to bring out different stuff in you, like as players. So I think like the group of guys is probably like giving their everything now. When like before they didn't give their everything. So I think like going into the rest of the games, like we see our potential. Like we have a good team. We have good players like in every spot. So we could do it. Like gaining. It's always hard to like gain confidence when you don't win. So it's like you don't even want to like go in and train. Like when you don't win, it's like you're just ready to go back home, or like you just can't wait for the season to finish because nothing is going your way. So I mean, confidence is a hard thing to build back up when you don't win. But like these games that we win recently, we are getting there. Like the practice is better. Like we are more sharp in practice. Like and like I I have some confidence that like we could win some games for sure. So we have a good team, man. We have a good team.
Yeah, and it's interesting schedule coming up. You got a game against Miami, and we got 2 games against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, who are a very, very good, always good USL champion.
Always good.
My favorite Hartford game was against Pittsburgh. You know, I was following the team very closely in 2020, and they were USL was in groups for COVID regional, and they took a 5-0 beating from Pittsburgh, and they took a 3-0 beating from Pittsburgh, and then really late in the season, when they needed to win to top the group, they went to Pittsburgh and won 1-0. Very, very impressive game. Probably an all-time game in Hartford's history. So it'd be nice to see a revival of that. You know, a win over Pittsburgh to add to 2 out of 3. You might really see the team turn a corner here, which you've mentioned the fans. I think the fans deserve it at Hartford. I think you got a very passionate owner in Bruce Mandel. I like a lot about the club, and it's one I really want to see succeed.
Yeah.
All right, so 2 last parts to this pod, and one's for you, Triston. I'm going to give you an opportunity here to become Coach Triston for a second. We've got a young defender listening to this podcast. He's looking at you. You've got yourself a career in the USL Championship. You've played in the Gold Cup. You've played against the USA and Jamaica. What advice would you give him on how to succeed as a defender at the top levels?
I mean, like, one of the first things that I learned as a defender is like working hard. Like, you know, you have to work hard. Like, you have to do extra work. Like, you can't do like what the team is doing. You'll be just like the team. You know, you have to like do extra stuff after practice. You have to like be dialed in. You have to, you know, like be tactically, you know, very good. I feel like being a good defender, like you tactically have to be like good too, you know, to know like your position wise and like, you know, learn your teammates in front of you, you know. So I think like being a good defender starts with working hard, you know. The rest is like, you know, you have to be good on the ball. You have to, you know, I mean, it all depends on like how bad you want to be a good player, you know, like you have to go out and like do what it takes to be, you know, sometimes it's going to be hard, but like you have to push through, you know?
Yeah. Good stuff. And last part of the pod, the weekend's coming up, opening weekend of EPL. You're a Liverpool fan. We're opening against Chelsea. What are you looking for in that game? What's one thing you're going to be looking to see?
Draw.
No,
Draw.
I think like me personally think Liverpool's going to win 2-0.
No chance.
Like,
no,
like
like
bringing the heat, Justin. Don't be a hit.
I think the mood in the camp is like it's pretty good right now. Like, you know,
Liverpool going to struggle this year.
I don't think so, bro.
They're going to be there how they was last season. They're in transition period at the minute. Chelsea, you never know where they're going to be good or they're going to be bad.
Yeah, that's why I think this game's interesting, because it's a battle of 2 teams that were both disappointed.
Clue what Chelsea are going to do. Who's going to line up for Chelsea? Don't know how they're going to play. All I know is it's going to be out of Arsenal and City again, so I'm cool.
Arsenal v Forest. What are we looking for, Justin?
Arsenal victory, of course. Arsenal ain't going to lose this season. We'll lose to City, but no, Arsenal win. Arsenal win. They got confident from the City victory. They're confident again from last season. They're going to go again. My only problem is how is the team going to fare once Champions League starts?
Yeah. So you two won't share my concern, but Middlesbrough play Coventry, and I don't know that we're going to win.
Coventry are decent again, so
I was out the playoffs last year. I believe Gus Haim is a Premier League level player. It looks like Middlesbrough are losing their star forward, Chuba Akpom.
Where's he going?
Is he injured?
He's not. He's on the bench, not playing. He was in a contract dispute all pre-season, and the most common rumours I'm hearing are Sheffield United and Crystal Palace, both of whom I think he could play well for. I think an interesting thing about Chuba is, you know what Balogun did in France last year. Like, Chuba scored 9-10 times as many goals as Balogun did on the same Middlesbrough team. So I think he belongs in the Premier League, or at least go to France.
He'll go for Palace, I reckon. Stay in London, go to Palace.
Yeah.
Typical we have a contract dispute though, because he done so well. So I guess that's why. And obviously there's transfer speculation, so I guess he's not going to play. But now who do they replace him with now?
I mean,
You're going to need a striker with Barry in the championship. You need a striker who's going to score 20, 25 goals minimum to be playoff team.
Jesus Ferreira. They've got Morgan.
6'9" in the press.
He ain't going to leave MLS to go Middlesbrough, that's for sure.
A 19-year-old on loan from Man City called Morgan Rogers. I didn't get in the opener for Millwall. Certainly not getting the Atuba's level. We bought a guy from Australia called Sammy Silvera.
Yeah,
and he looked exciting.
Yeah.
He did well against Millwall. He scored in the cup win at Huddersfield. So you never know. I mean, this time a year ago, no one thought it would be Tuba. He'd never hit.
You never know. Yeah,
and then he hits 30.
I was always the player that wanted to go from Middlesbrough to the US. So,
Triston, if you know any centre forwards that want to play in the championship and can get 30 goals, let me know, brother.
Yeah, I would.
Right. All right. So
I'll have a go.
Thank you all for listening. Triston, thank you sincerely. It's been a
pleasure, mate.
It's been an education.
All the best for the rest of the season.
Yeah, go Hartford.
I'll be watching the games just about.